Hey everybody, welcome to the TEConnect Podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, have you ordered anything recently?
Yes. Online? Yes. I order all the time. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you got packages coming to your house
It's like
pretty
a
regular basis.
non-stop stream, it seems like, at this point in time. Yes.
Now, are you experiencing any kind of delays or issues with your stuff?
Nominal. Some a little bit here, a little bit there, but I stand amazed at our ability to, collectively.
But we do know that
stuff.
the whole supply chain and e-commerce has still got some issues around it.
Yeah.
And and they may feel like they're pretty big, massive issues that are hard for any one company to overcome.
True.
But I would say, and we're going to talk about this today, that there are some things you could do to help out your customers who are trying to really cash in on this e-commerce trend and become part of the process themselves, to help them speed things up, do a little more productivity.
Efficiencies. Can we throw that word out?
Yes, that's a good one. I like that word.
Yes.
There are ways that you can help your customers out with that. Maybe you can't help
100%.
with millions or hundreds of cargo ships sitting off the coast that aren't getting here in time.
You don't
can't
need
do
to
anything
tackle
about that.
stuff.
Right.
That's big stuff.
There's small
We're
stuff
talking
you
the
do.
little stuff.
Exactly.
Here today.
So today we have Drew Arnold with us from Newcastle Systems.
Yep.
We're going to talk about, I didn't know this, that the growth in e-commerce has actually been bigger in B2B than it has been in B2C.
Ooh, see, I just learned something.
We've all been stuck at home ordering stuff. You'd think it'd be much bigger there, but it's not. We'll talk about, where some of the other bottlenecks might be occurring, what's actually going on from someone who's living and breathing in this world. We'll get into the opportunities again, like where are there opportunities that we can do something, that our VARs can do something right now to help out their customers get on board and get involved in this, and maybe free up some of that time and efficiencies that you mentioned.
Yes.
Then also maybe, we'll talk about how we can overcome some objections from folks that maybe think, I don't need to do anything different right now.
There's nothing to do here. We're good.
Exactly.
Why would we want to improve efficiencies? What are you talking about?
Whoever's saying that, come on. Yeah. All that plus our usual value to the VAR and what's TEConnecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect Podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today is Drew Arnold. Drew is the Midwestern Regional Sales Manager for Newcastle Systems. Drew, welcome to the show. We appreciate having you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this business and find yourself in Newcastle?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on. Really excited to talk to you guys today. I started with Newcastle Systems about 7 years ago, and actually looking at the date, it's January 20th. My first day was January 19th. The reason I can remember that so clearly is I'm from Indianapolis. My company's headquartered out of Boston. My first day on the job was the day after the AFC Championship game between the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots, which went on to be known as the Deflategate game.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was my first day at Newcastle Systems. The Boston folks did not take it easy on me.
Imagine not.
But over the past 7 years, I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, as well as small to mid-sized companies. And here, recently over the last couple of years, we've really seen just a massive increase in the amount of e-commerce customers looking for ways to become more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, if you can survive Deflategate on your first day at the job, you can survive anything.
That's so true.
That's a heck of a litmus test right there, especially when you're dealing with Boston sports.
I was just about to go there with New England fans. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Brutal.
Well, Drew, let's get into it here and talk a little bit about what's happening in the world of mobility and e-commerce, and understand what you're seeing out there, literally on the front lines. So, I mentioned at the top of the show that e-commerce has obviously been booming.
Yeah.
And we all kind of expected and understood that to happen because, we've all been stuck at home and, have had no other choice. For nice chunks of time, we haven't been able to go out to stores, or maybe you're not comfortable with it. But again, the stat that kind of popped out to me was that over the last 2 years, B2B e-commerce has actually grown faster and more than B2C. So can you explain that to us? Like, why is that? And is that the trend that you're seeing also?
Yeah. So when you look at it, when you look at the e-commerce pie, about 2/3 of that pie is actually business to business. It's kind of interesting because I think as a society, we think of retail, right? I go to Amazon or whatever retailer and I buy one thing. But when companies start doing it, obviously the volume gets a lot bigger, and that's why it's a lot easier for them to kind of eat up more of that pie. The other thing that's interesting is that the business to business world actually gets a lot of their cues from the business to consumer world, right? So, we call it the Amazon effect, but we all expect to get our shipments, whatever we buy, in 2 days, and we don't want to pay for shipping. Well, that's kind of crept over into the business world as well.
And when we think about all those challenges that we think about on the B2C world, all of them apply, I guess, as well in the B2B world, right? Like you're talking about accuracy of orders, or good God, reverse logistics, and that happens in the B2B world as well. Inventory concerns, all those things play a role in the B2B world.
I would think maybe even more so too, because we as consumers are just, buying one-off items most of the time. Like, I need, let's see, I need a new microphone or something. I'm just going to buy a microphone today. But when it's a company, it might be like, I need a crate of microphones, or I need a crate of this. I need 500 of this. And suddenly that's a much bigger shipping issue and problem than just getting one item out to one person's house somewhere in the Midwest. Like, it's a little different when you got to go that much bigger.
Good point.
Well, then, Drew, when we're thinking about, this whole mess that we're in as far as supply chain is concerned, outside, again, of those cargo ships that are sitting out to sea, which none of us can really do anything about, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing that DCs and warehouses and these logistic companies are facing right now that are contributing to these bottlenecks outside of again, the obvious cargo ship issues?
Yeah, so I'll give you 3 major challenges. Number 1 is labor. Number 2 is labor. And number 3 is labor, right? So any conference you go to, any breakout session, it's all going to be focused around labor. We can't hire enough people to distribute product, whether it's in the warehouse, whether it's the trucking industry, the ports. It all comes back to labor, and that's why automation is exploding the way that it is. It is cool, right? Robots are great. They're awesome. But the fact is, we need those to get the work done because there's not enough people. And then particularly with e-commerce and the pandemic, right? So there's a labor crisis anyway within distribution. You throw the pandemic on there. Now that problem's even worse. And on top of that, now everybody is buying through e-commerce. So they're buying single line items here and there. Typically, we find on the operations side that e-commerce requires about 3 times the labor as kind of typical distribution. So it's kind of a perfect storm in that labor is just critical right now. So any efficiencies that distribution companies can squeeze out of their process, they have to look at it. And we're really seeing that, on our side of the business.
So, but the challenges are not just there. Talk a little bit about, and I had the pleasure of being with Drew at one of our executive summits, and he was talking through some of the trends and challenges that are happening in that space. But I mean, you get into like internal cycle times, order cycle times, right? That's a challenge. Dock to stock cycle times. So, when you look at the warehouse environment itself, labor, obviously one of the big challenges there, but also some inefficiencies with the use of, or the lack of use of technology and mobile technology, right, in that space?
Yeah. So to kind of go back to, we've got the labor problems, right? But customer expectations are also higher than ever. So 80% of all customers expect their order to ship the same day that they placed it. And 56% of all consumers, we're a tough lot, are willing to no longer do business with a company if they have one bad delivery experience. So when you jump back and look at the processes inside of a warehouse, there are some key metrics to really pay attention to. One of those you mentioned, internal order cycle time, which is basically the amount of time from when the DC gets the order until it leaves. World class, that's happening in about 2 hours. If you're about the 36-hour mark, you definitely need to improve. The median is somewhere in between. Dock to stock, again, it's world class. They're getting product from the back of the truck, put away into their inventory in 2 hours or less. Sometimes we see that's over a day. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days. But right now, with the inventory problems that everyone's facing, you really can't let your product sit on the receiving dock anymore. So as soon as it comes in, you've got to receive it, put it away so it can be picked and shipped.
And these are some of the, I think what Drew just painted there are absolutely some of the nuggets that resellers can take with them when they're having that conversation. You know, when you go into the next, I'll call it pencil pushing warehouse, where they're still using pencil or they're still using Excel,
Right.
and you go to them and you say, hey, look, it's obvious, you know, you can even do the calculation. Your internal order cycle time is, if it's taking you 36 hours to facilitate that an order, you know, from whatever, it's insemination to getting out the door, you are not competing. Period.
Right.
Just full
And you
stop.
have to know
You're
that, yeah.
not competing. Best of class is in the 2 hour, you know, where they can turn that order in 2 hours. If you are receiving doc, you know, your receiving doc is putting that into stock. If it's taking you more than a day to do that, you are not competing, end user. You know, these are just some of the genuine conversations you got to have. Best in class, you need to be closer to the 2 hour mark when you receive something and put it on your shelf. So, right, Drew? I mean, these are it starts laying the foundation to some of the things we're going to talk about here coming up. But also, I mean, you know, you have to be able to arm yourself with that. You know, what is the industry? Where is the industry? And for manufacturers in this B2B world, just taking one small slice of B2B, people have to understand what good looks like, I guess,
Right,
is another
right.
way
Yeah.
to put it.
Yeah,
You know, they're
exactly.
living in their world and they might think that 3 days is okay. No,
It's not.
it's not.
Well, and I would think too that if you're able to go to somebody and say, hey, can we at least for trying to find a way to live somewhere in the middle between the 2 and the 3,
Right. Yeah, hit
the
the
2 hours
median.
and 36?
Yeah,
If you just made it to, I don't know, 16 hours or something, imagine how much more stuff you can get out the door, how much more productive you're going to be, how much more.
Or how much happier customers might be, right?
Exactly. Even like, again, it's not maybe saying like, hey, I want you to become the best in class. It's I want you to at least be better than where you are right now. At least be somewhere in the median somewhere if you can. So, well then, Drew, let's talk about the opportunity.
Actually,
Go ahead.
can I chime in there, because there's something else moving. Those companies that are at 2 hours at world in class numbers, they're improving faster than everybody else. So it's scary, right? If you're on the other end of the spectrum, you have to get better, and you have to get better fast.
Really quick.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's part of the message.
And it's not just speed. You have to maintain and improve accuracy as well, right? Because those companies that are shipping out orders in 2 hours, putting orders away in 2 hours, they've also got world-class accuracy, which is up over like 99.8%. On the lower end of the spectrum, and this is all according to the work studies put out each year, they're closer to 93%. So you imagine if you're shipping 7% of all of your orders incorrectly, customers aren't going to be happy. They're not going to use you.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a
Yeah, I think
really good
there's-
point.
Well, it's like, and it's one of those things where like, you know that if you're buying somewhere besides Amazon or Walmart.com, some smaller company maybe you've never really heard of or ordered from before, I would hopefully think you think to yourself, all right, I may not get the exact same experience, but nevertheless, you're still wanting the exact same experience if possible. And anything, and even though you might get a little less than that, the farther and farther away from that experience you get, the less likely you are to go back to that person again. If you're thinking, all right, I buy this on Amazon, I get it in 2 days, and it's always correct. Great. I'm buying it from this guy, I get it in 3 days, it's still always correct. Fine, I'll deal with that. Oh, now I'm buying it from this person. I got it in 5 days. They botched my order up, the last 2 orders, and I had to return stuff and get it. Yeah, you're right. That's it. Like you're not going to get more than one chance, maybe 2 chances if you're lucky with them.
Yeah, and I think the part of the commentary here is that, you know, as a society, our expectations off of what happens in the B2C world and just the, you know, on-demand type of environment, the information flow that you have, the ability to get in, you know, things quickly, that definitely translates into the B2B world, right? And and if you come across an end user, if you're a reseller and you're coming across your customers that don't understand that just yet, you need to be one of the people that are telling them, hey, then you're not going to, you know, this is not going to turn out well for you. You know, on this side, because this part of the world has changed dramatically.
Exactly. And it becomes even more critical again when you go into B2B because, you know, me as a consumer, if I don't get a video game that I ordered, in 2 days and instead it's 4 days, whatever. I just
Right.
missed out on a couple of days playing the game. But if you're working B2B and they don't get something that's critical for their business, for their processes, for for them to fulfill another order of some sort, that's a huge difference than just John getting annoyed because he didn't get his game on time. That's a pretty big difference between that and a company who literally is maybe losing millions of dollars because they can't get an
we got
order
to shut
shipped.
down this line because we didn't get the widget in time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't want to mess that up.
No.
Well then, Drew, let's talk about the opportunity here, because this is what our VARs are obviously wanting to really think about is where is their opportunity? What can I do about this? I can't do anything about those ships. They're probably thinking I really can't do anything about the labor shortage either. But I know that you tend to speak, and this is why Dean recommended you to come on and talk to us about this, because he mentioned it when he heard you speak about this at the executive summit, that you often speak about mobility as being the low hanging fruit when it comes to assisting with these problems. So explain to us why you think that, and how mobility solutions are helping solve some of these challenges.
Yeah. So when you look at technology, automation, if you look at the barriers to entry, mobile powered carts have very few. Typically, our customers, we like to joke that you need a ceiling, you need a concrete floor, you need Wi-Fi and electricity. Pretty much every warehouse out there has those. Maybe some the exceptional Wi-Fi, but they're not a fit for us, right? So those are basically what you need to implement our solution. If you've got Wi-Fi, you can use Wi-Fi devices on our carts, right? Electricity just needed to recharge the product. So that's very low. It's not complex. It can work with your whatever softwares you have. We're agnostic when it comes to that standpoint. So really, whatever systems you have in place, they work alongside our product. Whatever you're plugging into the wall, you simply plug into our product. So from that standpoint, there's really no barriers to entry. The cost, you can say that's expensive, that's cheap. It does have a lower cost, but more importantly, the ROI is extremely fast.
And were you going to say something else there, Drew?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. There was. I think you guys do a very good job, by the way. If you go onto the Newcastle website, they have awesome information from a reseller standpoint. Yep. Let's dive into this mobility, because I could not agree more. This is one of those areas that I think resellers, it is low hanging fruit to be able to walk into the door and figure out how an environment can be much more efficient through the use of mobility.
And you'll probably see it. If you just literally walk the floor, you'll probably see exactly where, like, I know where we can improve this right now.
Absolutely. I think they do a really good job. So here, just to be clear, we're talking about mobile carts, in the environment of a warehouse. That's what Newcastle does and excels at. So the whole concept here is, and I love some of the stories you had, Drew. It's like, okay, the current work environment is you have an employee, they have to print a label. The label is across the warehouse to put on the box in order for it to ship. There's so much inefficiency there. And obviously this is on the fulfillment side, just mobilizing the cart so that, the cart and that technology can go with the person. Also on when you're in the receiving area, mobilizing the receiving area and having a cart there, a battery powered cart. It is unbelievable the amount of efficiencies that you can garner. To your point, Drew, you're not shaking things up in the sense that it's your ERP. It's the scanners maybe that you're using today. Maybe we have to, it can be the printers too. They just go on the cart and now they're powered by mobile power. You're not rocking the boat as far as it's a very small fix that can have a dramatic impact on the efficiency of your customer, your reseller, your customer. You can walk in the door and make such claims as, we're going to make this 40% more efficient than it is right now, and you're going to be able to, do this many more orders just by mobilizing your workforce. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So that's one of the that's why I think this is such low-hanging fruit in its ability. And a couple of the articles that you have on your site, Drew, what I like about it is you have a little ROI rating on some of the bottom of the pages, and it says, here's your cost, and here's the time to impact. And when you think about making something mobile, the use of mobile carts, where the cost might be middle of the road, type of a thing, but the time to impact is like day one. This is impacting day one, and they have countless use cases and case studies, which I love. And I know everybody knows I love them, in the sense that VARs learn from VARs. You've got these case studies out there where just about every industry that implemented some type of mobile solution, instant gratification, from that regard.
I agree.
So,
and from the VAR standpoint, it's really easy to spot the opportunities. If there's a fixed printer stuck to the wall via power cord, and somebody is walking from pallets back to that printer, there's a need for our product there, or some sort of mobility. And so that's how you can really find the opportunities. Now, unfortunately, in operations, right, they're up against it. There's a labor shortage. They've got a lot of throughput they have to do. They're fighting fires all day. They see people walking. They don't necessarily pick up on those are wasted footsteps. They see somebody who's working really hard. They're busy, and they are. But if they don't have to take those footsteps, that's where the VARs can really help the customers and kind of leverage that process gain to refresh equipment. I think we're probably going to get into that later on.
Yeah. Well, and I think this also comes back to another talking point that we've touched on a few times, this whole great resignation that's going on in the workforce right now. This labor shortage is obviously coming out of, in part because of, what's happened related to COVID or, opportunities people might have elsewhere, competition. But a big part of it too is people that are just deciding like, hey, I don't want to do this kind of job anymore. I don't want to do the job that requires me to walk 10 miles a day just around a warehouse to pick and pack and move and do stuff.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Like it's people saying like, it's not healthy for me anymore. I don't get paid enough. I don't get good enough benefits. Why would I want to do this job that's breaking my back? And this would be a simple way for you to say, hey, you can put a leg up over your competition. Like where we live here in the Cincinnati tri-state area, there are lots of distribution centers and warehouses. We're a big hub for that in this area. Lots of competition. Imagine if when you're out there recruiting, you can show people when they come in to potentially look whether they want to work for you or versus another place and say, hey, I'm not going to make you walk the floor for hours and hours every day just looking busy because you're just trying to get from point A to B all the time. I'm going to give you the tools you need to stay in one place, get all your work done, work just as actually more efficiently.
Yeah.
And also not break your back and kill your legs and make you want to just, crumple up in a ball at the end of every day because you're in pain or something. That's the kind of, I hate to say it, but that stuff is, it's a low hanging fruit kind of thing to be able to go to a workforce and tell them like, hey, I genuinely do care about you. I get this maybe isn't the highest paying job in the world. It may not be the most exciting job in the world, but we at least care enough about you to give you the tools you need to not break down every day after working.
Yeah, that's it.
Simple as
that's
that.
It.
Yeah.
Even on...
John,
go ahead, Drew.
No, I'm sorry, but John, you bring up a good point, and it might even be another topic for a different podcast, but employee engagement is huge. When you engage the employees, show them that you care about them. There's some studies that show that engaged employees are 30% more effective, and they're a lot less likely to quit.
Yep.
Right? So to tie that back to labor, if you got somebody in-house and they're doing a great job, you can't let them go.
Yeah. Think about it. If you're there and you want to do right and a good job, there's efficiencies in the world that you're maybe living in today where you got to print something, you got to go to a label printer halfway across the warehouse. There's opportunity for you to get the wrong label because somebody else is printing something else as well. That kind of stuff has a negative impact on the person's performance. Whereas, through a mobilized solution, now everything's right here. I'm printing at the pallet, if you will, enabling that. It really does improve job satisfaction across the board.
Yeah.
Interesting, really interesting when you think about, I guess to your point, Drew, operations people, they have their head down, right? They're just trying to get through the day, trying to get the orders out. Not really as fascinating. They see people buzzing around. Oh, that means work is getting done. Right. Whereas no, work's getting done. Okay, but it's not efficient, and so much more work could be getting done. That's a fascinating take.
Exactly. All right. Well, hey, Drew, let's wrap up this conversation by talking about, Dean has already hinted at it, this ROI. You guys talk a lot about ROI on your website and I'm sure in your conversations with customers. So we know that there's a lot of people that take if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of attitude.
Right?
I don't have any real major problems. We're not world class, but we're doing great. And we feel like we're pretty efficient and we're getting stuff out there. that one of the most common objections is always we just talked about that with James Cordy on a marketing episode, the battling the status quo.
Yep.
So how do you use this whole idea of ROI to overcome those kind of objections?
Yeah. So, if it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. It's a very costly mindset to have. Same as, we've always done it this way, extremely costly to think like that. And I'd even argue that if you're not at those world-class numbers, it is broke. So it is worth looking into fixing the problem, right? We often use ROI just because it's so strong, right? There's a lot of wasted motion in these processes. Again, if you're a VAR, just think, I've got somebody walking from a printer to pallets. Try to quantify how much they're walking. Baseline numbers, we typically see that between 10 and 30 minutes per hour. 10 minutes per hour is 2 months of the year, right? So to tie it all back to labor, you can't pay people to walk 2 months and not get any value out of that. So with that, at 10 minutes per hour, we typically see an ROI between 3 and 6 months in a one-shift operation. And that's even with the hardware thrown in there. So the interesting thing about our product is it can have a tremendous impact, improve efficiencies across the board, but it has no value without Zebra equipment on it, Honeywell equipment on it, the AIDC stuff, right? So working together, that's really where the ROI comes in. And you can raise some eyebrows. For example, I was on a call yesterday, companies looking at 50 stations. The ROI ended up being 1.7 months just because their associates are paid very well. And there's a decent amount of walking in their process. So it's one of those things where they kind of thought it was a problem. They didn't realize how big of a problem it is. So now you're talking across all of those stations throughout the year, savings of over $1 million. So it can have a massive impact despite being a relatively simple product.
That's love
impressive.
it. I think from a reseller standpoint, I get it. Sometimes having the mobility conversation is a difficult one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to sometimes articulate into meaningful solutions or whatnot. And so, in order to have that conversation, we're talking specifically here about mobile carts, but the mobility conversation can be broader than that, right?
Right.
I mean, a lot of the devices that we distribute that resellers are implementing enable that. It's not a fixed reader anymore; it's a mobile reader. But it's even then trying to get customers to move into that direction, very, very difficult to do. I will give a shout out to Newcastle, and you got to go to their website and go to that ROI link. Mm-hmm. They have got a fantastic little calculator here that you can utilize to illustrate the value of. Now, again, this is specific to mobile carts, but I think that if you get into the mindset of trying to calculate mobility, now you have a different way of having that conversation with your customer. This particular ROI, what do they call it again? Calculator is really, really good. You put in there the number of hours per week, the number of minutes they're standing at a cart, and it does a fantastic job of just instantly, this is how much you would save per year. And that's where Drew was getting to. They had one that went all the way down. They see the payoff in 1.7 months. Anyway, again, the whole idea here is how do you have that conversation? A tool like this, and maybe starting to approach into that. In this case, a mobile cart is a good way to transition into that conversation.
Yep, a little simple math can solve some problems,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because you need to be able to just be able to walk into your customer and say, well, you know what? If we put mobile, readers on these folks, or a mobile printer, I can tell you it's going to be a lot more efficient. No, you need to walk in maybe with something that's a little bit more quantifiable,
right.
And to have that conversation.
Yeah. And it's just it's all just part of a conversation. It's about asking the right questions.
That's exactly right.
And if they'll let you do it, see if you can get out on the floor, talk to some of the workers and ask them, like, hey, what's your day-to-day work look? Can I shadow you for a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, so you got to walk from here to there?
Yeah.
How far would you say that is? How often do you do this every day? Because it could be maybe the people at the upper levels don't necessarily think about that stuff as much or aren't calculating that stuff. But when you get in there and see what's actually happening, it's a much more powerful story that you can come back later and say, hey, I crunched the numbers and you're losing a lot of efficiency just by someone walking from point X to point Y try to just get something done.
And I'm going to tie this into the conversation we had maybe last podcast about the challenger model, right?
Yep.
So if you're going to walk in and have a conversation that's going to kind of unteach the biases that maybe your customer has around, oh no, we're good.
Yeah,
this
is
is
just
pretty
how it's done.
efficient.
Yeah.
Well, no, we have a central printer that everybody can go to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's taking everybody, whatever, 10 minutes out of their day, per work hour to go to that centralized printer. Anyway, it gets you into that conversation in really a meaningful way. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, this has been a great conversation about what's happening here in the world of e-commerce and mobility. As always, we want to wrap things up before we get to our final segments by, first of all, thanking our TEConnect sponsors. So Datalogic, Elo, Epson, Honeywell, Intel, Zebra, thank you so much for your support of the show. I know Newcastle does a lot of work with Zebra too,
Yes.
and then just cool stuff they can put on those carts. So
Absolutely.
if you are looking for solutions that include the hardware piece of things, if someone's looking to upgrade, you can do that with some of these great folks as well. And hey, as always, if you like the show, a couple different things you can do. If you're listening to us on a podcast or like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a rating and review. Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating. If you leave a review for us, we'll check those out. Maybe read some of them on air. We don't get that happen too often. We get some 5-star ratings. I think we're still at a perfect 5 stars for now.
There you go.
And but I'd love to hear some reviews from you folks and tell us what you think about the show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button for this episode. Leave a comment if you like. Definitely subscribe to BlueStar's channel. We have all kinds of cool video content even outside of the podcast.
Smash the subscribe.
So smash that subscribe button, as the kids like to say. And of course, as always, if you have thoughts about the show, if you have questions, other topics you want us to tackle, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find us on Twitter at TEConnect Pod. You can also email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, hey, let's wrap up as always. First of all, with the value to the VAR. This is where we want to kind of give a little takeaway for our audience from this conversation. And in particular, I'm going to let Drew talk a little bit more about Newcastle and what they can do for our VARs. So, tell us about how you are helping VARs out right now with capturing this low-hanging fruit of mobility.
Yeah.
Right. So Newcastle Systems, world leader in mobile-powered workstations, right? Think of it as a battery on wheels, really. One, it's an extra tool just to keep in mind when you're helping your customers. You don't necessarily just want to quote them hardware, right? You do want to solve their problems. It's going to strengthen your relationship and keep them your customer longer. So that's really where we've helped. The other thing that we've helped the VARs with is refreshing equipment that might be 10, 15, 20 years old that's still working fine, right? Maybe Zebra made the printers too good and people have had them for 15, 20 years. They're still printing labels like they're supposed to, right? As a reseller, that could be problematic if you're trying to refresh their equipment and there's no compelling story. So through the process improvement piece, that's where we come into play. We provide the ROI, not just for our cart, but for the whole solution, right? So maybe that's a new ZT411, maybe it's a new scanner, maybe it's a new computer, mobile computer, whatever you need. But the process improvement that our product provides help justify the cost for all of the hardware. So one, the customer wins because they get new equipment and their process is better. Two, the reseller wins because they're the ones facilitating that whole deal and strengthening their relationship with the customers. We win because our product's part of the all-in-one solution, and BlueStar wins as well because all of that's going through BlueStar, right?
There you go. That's right.
Nice.
No, it's a good story to talk about. The value to the VAR here is having that mobility conversation. And what I love about the carts, it's a focus piece. You can focus on it if you want, and to mobilize your customers, or you can use it generally to have the mobility conversation. But at the end of the road, who's going to complain about their workers being more efficient, being connected, no congestion around resources that they might have today. The pace of the environment is picked up even more. I mean, this is the conversation you want to have. And seriously, as a solutions integrator who has the best interest of your customer at heart, understanding a mobile solution like this one that we've been talking about, like a mobile cart and how you can just mobilize the whole solution, man, you're gonna. Well, for those people that understand that, hey, these are important, and if I want to stay relevant in this world, I gotta start moving to these types of solutions. Right.
Yep. Yeah. And and I love also the Newcastle. It gets kind of, we talk a lot about how our VARs should be thinking of solutions, not just selling products. It's in our mind, this is how you move forward and how you survive in this channel at this point is you're selling solutions, not just I've got a scanner, I've got a mobile computer, I've got a printer. And I like that Newcastle, from the manufacturer side of things, also understands that and realizes, like, hey, we're happy to sell you just a cart, and that's fine, but we want to work with you to create a full solution as well. And that might mean reaching out to other partners and, again, bringing in an entire solution that we can go to somebody and say, hey, here's how this is going to impact your business. Oh, and by the way, we've already got everything to back it up. We'll show that to you. We'll show you why this is going to prove the case for us, and you should have no good reason to really turn us down at this point.
Yeah. Really good products too along the way. Yeah,
definitely. All right. Well, hey, let's wrap up as always with our favorite segment, What's Tech Connecting with You? This is where we get to talk about something from the world of science, tech, innovation that has caught our eye, got our attention, is making us excited about the future of science and technology, or dreading where humanity might end up next. Could go either way. So, Drew, I'll let you start. What's Tech Connecting with you right now?
So I've got I thought it was an app, but it's actually just a website. It's called Dr. Alexa, and I thought it might be relevant to people right now. I actually helped a friend out, lives in a different part of the country. The COVID numbers are really bad where he's at. He couldn't get a doctor's appointment for a simple cold. Told him about Dr. Alexa. It's a website. Basically, if you kind of know what's going on, so maybe say it's a sinus infection and you've had them before and you typically get a Z-Pack, you can actually go on there, tell them your symptoms, tell them what you need, and next thing you know, you tell them what pharmacy to send it to, and boom. So it's kind of like taking the doctor to the e-commerce level as well.
Nice.
I'm just now logging onto the site. Had no idea this existed. What?
Yes. I've actually I used it on vacation once, felt the sniffles coming on. And as soon as we got there, said, I'm not doing that on vacation. So just punched it in, got the meds, never actually got sick. So it's been a lifesaver for me as well.
That's
I'll
fantastic.
be darned. Yeah.
Well, I like this stuff too, because I hear about these things. We're kind of spoiled in the area we're in here, where we have basically only a couple of major healthcare systems.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe spoiled isn't the right word, because that can be a bad thing sometimes.
Right.
But there's only a few major healthcare systems in this particular area where if you're going to a doctor or a hospital or any kind of specialized clinic, you're probably going someone connected to them. But you live in some areas, especially major urban areas like New York, LA, where there are thousands of choices not connected to each other in any way. And it can be hard to navigate through finding like the right person to do the right thing for you. So I think, stuff like this, I feel like, is what's going to help enable that kind of future of medicine where you can get what you need,
right?
Even without having to figure out and know exactly where you're supposed to go to get it. So I like this. It's kind of cool.
That's a good
Dr.
service.
Alexa.
Dr. Alexa. I'm in. There you go.
Dean, what's Tech Connecting with you?
Have you lost faith in the FAA like I have?
Is this about 5G?
Can there be any more of a debacle that is happening right now than the whole AT&T Verizon rollout and the FAA? I mean, this is just so fascinating,
It is.
but it's sad also. And
Because how long has this been coming?
Well, 2 years. So FAA specifically has had 2 years to figure this out. And they're not taking the bull by the horns.
No.
It's not until the airlines go, would you please, God, don't turn these things on because we might be driving planes into the ground. Even that was like, no, we're still going forward with it, right? AT&T and Verizon are like, no, we're still going to do this. It's like, what is happening here? I'm trying to get my head around it. So anyway, the FAA has had 2 years to go through this. So I'm going to read AT&T's most recent response. Thankfully, they didn't turn on these towers that are next to the big airports. And here's what they say. At our sole discretion, we voluntarily agreed to temporarily defer turning on the limited number of towers, blah, 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 blah. And the FAA to provide further information about our 5G deployment, since they have not utilized the 2 years they've had to responsibly plan for this deployment.
I feel like this is one of those things where like a whole bunch of people kind of messed this up.
But nobody's going to get fired.
I know, and no one's going to take credit for not getting it right, and no one's going to get fired over this.
Exactly. The commentary here is if this was a business, heads would be rolling. Stuff. But this is the FAA. I mean, how does this even happen that we get to this point?
I mean, we've been talking about 5G forever. This is not a new concept. This is not something they just came up with yesterday and decided we're going to roll this out in September, and everybody get on board. No, there's been plenty of time to figure out the ramifications of this.
Yeah. And AT&T and Verizon obviously was working in conjunction with the FAA to figure out if there was going to be an issue around here.
Right.
Had 2 years to figure out. It's not like the FAA came out and said, hey, you know what? We're taking the lead here. We need a little bit more time or whatever it is.
Right,
it wasn't until the airlines started going, hey.
Can we not do this?
Anyway, it's not really, it's more of a tech beef. It's oh my God, what is going on?
And again, I don't know every single nuance of the thing. I'm sure there's things that we don't really know about going on here, but at the same time, and I'm also like, hey,
well, it's a PR debacle.
I definitely don't want to have any reason for my plane to crash after takeoff or not be able to land somewhere.
Exactly.
Because someone wants to download a puppy video faster than usual. I'm fine with that precaution there. But again, at the same time, you've had the time to figure this out. Why have you not yet?
And other countries have, but we haven't. And then, oh Lord. So what's TEConnecting with you? Hopefully something brighter than that.
Okay, well.
Oh, no.
May or may not be brighter than that. Okay, so have you, for some reason, space topics have been a big thing for me.
Yes,
I think I've been when I was collecting links to talk about over the off season here, I kept finding a bunch of space stuff. Have you heard about the DART mission?
No.
This is NASA's project with SpaceX. They're working in conjunction with SpaceX here.
Okay.
DART stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test.
Oh, okay.
So basically the idea is to solve a problem that doesn't necessarily exist yet, but could theoretically at some point, which is a massive asteroid plummeting towards Earth that could cause a cataclysmic event. They call them city smashers or city destroyers or whatever, the kinds that could potentially, even if they just blew up an atmosphere, cause some serious damage and alter the Earth forever, potentially in some way. So the idea is, hey, let's figure out if there's a way that we can stop these things from happening. And granted, they don't honestly know if this is going to work, but they're doing a mission. They actually launched it November 23rd. It was on a SpaceX capsule, and basically they're going to hurl a space vessel at an asteroid. So we know where an asteroid is. It's not one that's actually on its way to Earth, but one that we're going to hurl an unmanned vessel at it, smash it into it, and see if it alters its trajectory.
Really?
They don't honestly know if this is going to work, but they're going to try.
No nuclear head on it or anything like that.
And
that was just a ram.
The article, which I'll link to in the notes that's talking about this, mentions Hollywood loves to talk about this idea of using nukes, but again, you don't know what those are going to do, and it could simply just make the problem worse, where it just blows it up into 1,000 asteroids that rain down all across the planet, and make even more damage. So they're going to try this out. Hopefully that it works. Apparently, it's going to reach its target sometime in the fall, and it'll hit at 42,000 kilometers per hour is the speed that it'll be impacting the asteroid.
That's moving.
But again, they still are we don't know if it's just going to kick up a cloud of dust, maybe just slightly alter its trajectory. We really don't know.
Do we know how big the asteroid is that they're hitting?
It might have been in the article, but I don't remember. But I think it was they picked one that they felt if this is the kind of asteroid that if it was on its way to Earth would cause the most potential damage, And there's interesting stuff in the article about, some previous instances of this stuff happening. One was in 2013 in Russia. There was a much, much smaller asteroid that blew up over a city, leveled some buildings, blew out windows. I think 1,200 people ended up dying. It was a pretty significant thing. And they also mentioned, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Tunguska event, which is, I think, 1903 maybe?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Another one that they believe blew up over top of this whole area and just leveled thousands of miles of forest and terrain.
The trees were sticks.
And again, didn't even impact the Earth, just blew up in the atmosphere and still caused that much damage. So they basically said in the article also that there is a 1% chance every century of one of these things actually finding its way to Earth. And so their idea is at some point, we're going to run out of the luck, and it's probably going to happen potentially somewhere. So we need to figure out how to stop it before it happens. And maybe it's another few thousand years off, but at some point we probably should figure this out. So
I'm interesting little mission. Attention.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this goes, see if it actually works.
What a scientific flex to say, you know what, we're just going to launch something, however far away this asteroid is, that is traveling at whatever ungodly speed. We're going to ram it.
Just going to ram it and see what happens.
What? Yeah.
Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to send it on a trajectory that hits some other planet where some aliens live or something like that, and they're going to start a war with us because they think we struck first. I don't know.
Yeah, there's your doomsday right there.
That's tomorrow's problem.
That's tomorrow's problem.
All right, Drew Arnold from Newcastle Systems. Thank you so much for joining us
Thanks,
today.
Drew.
Thank you both.
And hey, until next time, find a way to not have to walk 10 miles a day in your
Get more efficient.
warehouse facility. Get more efficient. And as always, please stay connected. Hey, Dean, what if I told you that one product could have thousands of uses? Can you think of a product that has thousands of uses?
No. Well, maybe my phone.
Well, I suppose.
No, I can't use it to open a bottle. So no, I can't. I got nothing.
Okay, well, I hate to tell you, this product you can't open a bottle with either.
Okay,
but the possibilities are endless with Elo's iSeries 4. From self-order and self-checkout to order pickup and virtual assistance, you can pair the iSeries with a variety of stands to create your perfect kiosk. Audio and video applications? No problem. The iSeries offers built-in digital microphones and an 8-megapixel camera. You know me, I love kiosks.
Yes, right? Yes.
Anytime I can use a kiosk and avoid human contact,
You're
in any
all
way,
in.
I'm all in.
All in.
I mean, if the end of the world comes and there's no humans, but the kiosk can still operate
You're good.
and give me what I want, I'm
Yeah,
good.
you're good.
Fine. It's all good. iSeries also lets retailers build engaging experiences, educate buyers, create brand awareness, and drive purchases in-store with an easy-to-use interactive platform that can adapt as needs change. With a built-in I/O hub, USB-C connectivity, and optional customer-facing display, you can easily convert your favorite iSeries into a powerful, industrial-designed POS system. That sounds pretty cool to me.
Yeah, and did we say Android?
Yes.
Is it right? They do Android.
I'm sure they got Android.
Of course they do.
Might have Android and Windows, actually. I don't know.
Fair enough.
If not, Ela will correct me there. Sorry about that. To learn more and select the perfect iSeries display for your customers' needs, contact your BlueStar Ela representative. Hey, Dee, this episode is all about mobility and e-commerce, right?
Yes.
So we should be talking about some mobility products, right?
I think that would be a great idea.
That's right. Well, hey, the TEConnect Podcast is brought to you by Zebra. Look, the on-demand economy is pretty challenging to frontline workers. You're going to hear more about that in this episode, including forklift operators. Well, to fill orders faster, you want them to have no loss of accuracy.
Yes.
So designed for harsh warehouses, cold chain, and yard environments, Zebra's ultra-rugged vehicle-mounted computers can equip them to elevate their work performance to new heights. They're made to be mounted on material handling equipment and withstand extreme temperatures, shock, and vibration to maintain operational continuity. I mean, I get frustrated when my computer just fritzes for a moment. I can't imagine if you're in the middle of working in a cold environment or something, your computer's
get this
freezing
thing to
up
work.
on
Why
you,
is this
literally.
thing not working? What's going on? Yeah.
Come on,
That's very frustrating.
I want my green beans delivered to Kroger sooner. That's the ultra rugged. There is the ultra rugged VC8300, which makes migration and device management simple, easy, and cost-effective, providing a keyboard to support today's green screen apps and Android for the apps of tomorrow. Get to those apps of tomorrow. Green screen?
Green screen. We got to get away from that.
I mean, I'm glad Zebra's supporting that. That's awesome.
Of course.
Come on, green screens.
Right.
Now, if speedy, accurate inventory and asset management is called for, the VC80X Android series fits virtually any vehicle. They have programmable keys, field replaceable touchscreen, or optional keyboard, all usable with even the thickest gloves. I wanted to be the person that tries that out.
You're right with the
That
gloves.
actually sounds like something our proving squad might have done. Just like super thick gloves.
Yeah,
Like
right.
Hulk hands or something, you know?
It
We get
doesn't
Josh
matter.
Kelly with the Hulk hands
you
here.
can just pound your
Yeah.
You can get it.
Me touch computer. Want to learn more and find the perfect option for your supply chain customers? Check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar Zebra representative.